Well, overall, it was a pretty decent day across much of the eastern part of the United States. Actually, much of the eastern half of the United States. We've got a new storm coming into the west, and we have two weak weather systems that will be parading along over the next couple of days. And the first one will bring some snow to the north, and the second one may bring some snow nearby and to the south. And we will, of course, discuss this in such incredible detail that you will be stunned. Actually, Joe and I will be stunned too tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The Tempest is an affiliate of the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. The link is on the description to this podcast. And if you use the coupon code WINTER2324,
you'll get 10% off. So go out and get it now.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yes.
I'm wearing
Oh,
my
here we
Mets.
go.
I'm only wearing my Mets sweatshirt because A, I like it. B,
Okay.
it keeps me warm, and it's annoying to me because it says 2000 NL champions, and we all remember in 2000 what happened.
Right.
Won the
Me.
pennant, and then they played the other New York team, and I won't get more into that.
Well, I actually took a shower before the show, which is something I
Oh,
don't normally do. I put on a clean shirt.
the month is
Yeah,
up.
yeah, it was 25 here this morning, but we managed to get up into the 50s. Actually, depending on some areas around town where there's fewer trees, the grass is starting to green up. That's one thing I do like about, well, I like a lot of things about living here in North Georgia, but everything starts to get green in late February, early March. And if you go down to Atlanta around mid-March, everything is really greened up. So uh, every day we're one day closer to the end of this winter season. And I don't know,
And
I'm just
by the
kind of
way,
getting too old for the cold.
you reminded me of something of an interesting fact that within the next week, all of the deciduous trees up here in the latitude of New York are going to begin the process of spouting their leaves. Now, of course, you don't see any leaves coming out in late February, but it's a long, drawn out process. And it comes because of partially the weather, but also because of the fact that on the 21st of February, we will be 2 months past the winter solstice. And I'm sure a lot of people have already noticed, Joe, that the sun has climbed up a bit higher in the sky at midday as opposed to where it was, let's say, a few days before Christmas. And the trees recognize that, and they will begin the process of I don't know exactly. I'm not
Treeing.
trees, but yeah, exactly. And
There's
you
going to
know,
be treeing.
and interestingly, the opposite effect happens in late August. In late August, the whole trend toward dropping the
Leafing.
will be will be occurring. So another sign that we are getting closer to spring, even though it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it out there tonight.
Yes. Well, you still have plenty of snow cover, I imagine.
Yes, and I can't. You see, you said, "Oh, my grass is beginning to get greener." I can't see my grass. It's covered by. It's still covered by anywhere from 5 to 8 inches of white. So
Well, Joe, remember, as Irma Bombeck said, the grass is always greener over the septic tank.
absolutely, that is absolutely true.
Right, but
That
that
is.
may require a working toilet. So that's.
Don't get funny now.
I'm sorry, I had to do that. Welcome everybody tonight to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Those of you who join us on the chat board every day, thank you for being here as always. Big hugs from both of us, and welcome to those of you who are lurking in the background because we know you're there. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you don't miss us because we are on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. We're going to do a little bit of a schedule change. We will be here Friday. We're going to do a show Friday night this week. However, we will be off on Sunday, and of course, this weekend is the President's Day holiday weekend, and since that we've got two weather systems on the front end and probably not too much going on behind it. I think this will work out for everybody.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the comments on the chat board here, Joe, and it's interesting. Long range outlook, according to James Davidson. Look out for March. Calls for much warmer than normal temperatures, which works for me, says James Davidson. So, you probably are one of the very few on the chat board, James, who would say that, because there are a lot of people who were in their element yesterday with the cold and the snow that fell, and are hoping for more of that as
Well,
we move in.
James is only on here to remind us all the time that the Jersey it never snows at the Jersey Shore.
Yes.
Apparently that's breaking news every single day. Okay, so we'll allow for that. Joe Lopresti bangs the tip jar tonight. Thank you, Joe Lopresti, for hitting super chat, and thank you for the kind words about last night's show. I'm always feeling a little bit subdued, by the way. What all the build up into a snow event, and then the day of the actual event or just after it's over with, you kind of. I mean, I always find myself taking a step down uh, mentally, but I guess that's just everybody's way of just sort of calming
Would you,
down.
would you call this the meteorological version of postpartum depression?
Yeah, something like that, I guess.
Yeah.
By the way, those of you who use tropical tidbits, you might have tried to go on today. It was working this morning, but since midday, it hasn't been working. So I'm thinking that Levi must have some big server issues going on. So I'm sure he will try to get it repaired as quickly as possible. In the meantime, we'll just use pivotal weather tonight. And shall we begin?
Yes, why not?
And we've actually have the action now has shifted over toward the west, and let's go to the west. Hang on a second here while I bring the map up. We'll go to the watches and warnings map. And John Lightman, thank you for hitting uh, super chat tonight. Yeah, the audio is working fine. Thank you. I'm glad. And Paul Roman, thank you for hitting a super chat tonight as well. It's the new microphone, I think. Winter storm warnings are up in the great state of Montana and northwestern Wyoming and parts of northern Idaho. Also in the Cascades and then the Sierra Nevadas. We've got winter weather warnings, winter weather advisories on either side of both areas. And then we have this strip of winter weather advisories and and a few winter storm warnings across South Dakota, Minnesota, into Wisconsin, central and northern Michigan. We have is that winter storm watches up for parts of west upstate New York? Yes, winter storm watches up for the counties east of Lake Ontario, and that's going to be with that low that's going to be moving to the east. And we've got some advisories up for northern New York, as well as a number of counties in the great state of Vermont, which, by the way, Mr. Rayo,
Yes.
um, I read on Dave Toller's post the other day about the state of Vermont that uh, there was no snow cover on the ground. I think in wherever it was, I can't remember if it was in Burlington, but there was no snow cover on the ground for the first 12 days in February, and that's the first time that that's ever happened. And I think it just really goes to the fact that this winter across the United States, just about everybody is running, except for maybe some of the higher mountains in the west. Just about everybody, certainly everybody in the east. We showed that yesterday. Is in the land of below normal snowfall. Yeah, I said before the winter started that we'll probably see some weird things happen. So I guess that certainly qualifies. The lack of snow certainly could qualify as a weird thing. Whether that's the beginning of a new trend or not, I don't know. But we'll find out next year, or the year after, or the year after that. Wind advisories up for much of southern New York and for some counties in northern Ohio. Otherwise, the rest of the country is pretty quiet. And when we look at the satellite view tonight, it's pretty nice. You can actually see, now this was something I didn't expect to see, Joe, but if you look on the loop, you can actually see the snow cover across eastern Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, Long Island, the Hudson Valley, and Connecticut. That's that gray area that's not moving. That is actual snow cover, believe it or not. Uh, Odd, isn't it?
Well, unfortunately, I'm running so far behind right now, Joe, that I can't.
Trust me, just trust me.
I will. I will. I always trust you, Joe. Oh yeah, here
Thank
it
you.
is. Yeah, I see it. I see it. Oh yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
and look at the Mid Atlantic, the South, down to Florida, across the Gulf states, the Ohio Valley. Just an absolutely beautiful day. And you see this Pacific system that is offshore, that is coming close to the coast, spewing moisture into the west, and also across the northern Rockies and through the Dakotas. And the first piece will be moving eastward. This one goes by to our north, and I threw in the chance that there could be a rain or snow shower tomorrow evening when it goes by. But I think if you're north of Route 84, northern Connecticut and on up through Massachusetts and upstate New York, of course, you'll probably have some accumulating snow, uh, coating to a couple of inches. And of course, in those areas up further north where they got the advisories up and the winter storm watches, you're probably going to wind up with a little bit more.
I would agree. This is not a major event. I know that already the local TV stations in the New York area are already teasing their viewers with, guess what? More snow on the way. And of course, it is implied, especially if the announcer has just the right kind of inflection, it implies that maybe something similar to what we had yesterday is heading our way for tomorrow night or maybe Friday or Saturday or whatever. And of course, naturally, when you hear that, you make sure that your dial is set on whatever TV news station to watch,
Right.
so that the TV weathercaster hopefully will say, "Well, we fooled you. Just a few flurries, no big deal." That kind of stuff. So
Set your tone to WCBS.
four
Four
tones,
tones will follow. The fourth and loudest one marks the exact time.
yeah.
By the way, we've got 59 likes so far. Thank you for those of you who've hit the like button. And I forgot to mention earlier, if you like the show, hit the like button because if we hit 100 likes, Joe gets to tinkle his bell.
That's well, yeah, okay.
There was a pause there.
So you mentioned about the fact about Burlington and the lack of snow cover and how things are happening that have never happened before or that we have never seen. And one person who echoes that is Sarah Kapnick, who is the chief scientist at NOAA. And she has stated that, and this is a quote now from Dr. Kapnick, climate change has complicated just about able to rely on statistical models alone because the past isn't going to change. Excuse me, let me say that again. My tongue got tied. Climate change has complicated just being able to rely on statistical models alone because the past isn't going to always be a predictor of the future for us now. New types of events are happening that we don't have records for and that we have never seen before. And so that's where observations are no longer helpful. I'm not sure why she says, and that's why observations are no longer helpful. Obviously, if you're going to make note of these unusual anomalies that are occurring, things that we have never seen before, make an observation, keep a record, because now, once we build up enough records of these things, that may help us in, making predictions for the future. But she's right. We've said this here on Joe and Joe, that the rules that we've always been accustomed to over many, many years or decades don't seem to be working now the way they used to. And it might very well be because of either climate change or global warming, whatever you want to call it.
Well, I don't think we should be surprised. We've been noticing weird things going on for a while, and I think there were a few weird things here and there back of 4 or 5 years ago, and you just sort of shrug your shoulders, and then they started to happen more and more. And I think certainly last year, and particularly the second half of last year, and going into this winter, we've seen more and more of these weird things happening. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think we're going to see I think we're going to see weird, continuation of weird things in both directions, depending on, and there's probably some things that are going to happen that we're not taking it into account yet. So, ought to be a fascinating ride. Vincent Croce mentioning the fact that in Coney Island yesterday in Brooklyn measured 7.9 inches, and he lives 10 minutes away from Coney Island, and he only got 1.4. That, Vincent, was due to the fact that when you looked at this storm, if you watched it on the radar, there was a lot of banding that took place. When you ever have, there was an intensifying storm uh, of this magnitude offshore, the snow tends to get band up. So if you are in that band, like they were in northeastern Pennsylvania, parts of northeastern Pennsylvania, northwest New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, and into the southern half of Connecticut, you got clobbered. And there was probably, I noticed on the radar in the morning when everybody had gone over to snow, that there was some very heavy precip that just kind of nosed its way over just a small portion of the south shore of Long Island. So Coney Island must have gotten into that, and it does happen. You look at some of the bigger snowstorms, uh, and I experienced this on Long Island because with some of the bigger snowstorms, had was sitting where I lived in central Long Island, right in over and over. The bands would always set up over near where I live, and if you went 10, there were instances where I got 20 inches or more, but if you go a few miles on either side, they would have only gotten maybe 12 or 13. So they got into one of those bands, I think. Radar tonight is clean and clear up and down the eastern seaboard. If we go up into Minnesota, another place which has been snowstorm, may actually be snowing in Minneapolis right now, where they only had 7.6 inches for the whole winter, which is, I would never have dreamed that that would have been the case. Not that necessarily Minneapolis is the snow capital of the world, but because it isn't. But they do get more snow than we do, and also the fact that it's been, if there's one place in the country where it's been really warm this winter, with the exception of that Arctic air mass that came down, it's been up in the northern plains and into from Minnesota on westward into the Dakotas. I mean, it's just been exceptional, and you can see this area of snow is moving to the east. Meanwhile, out in the west, we have a surge of heavy rain coming in from San Francisco northward into southern Oregon. And of course, that's turning to snow as it reaches up into the Sierra Nevadas. We also have some heavier rain up in northwestern Oregon, and moving into southern Washington as that Pacific energy comes in. And WPC has a large area over the next 7 days of several to many inches up and down the coast of California again, and also in the Sierra Nevadas where it's going to be snow, and up in the Cascades where several inches or more of melted precip will fall. So some big snows expected there, and of course you also see heavy precip up in the northern Rockies. In the east, in the Great Lakes, there's a half to three-quarters of an inch in northern Michigan, and then on the Canada side, we're seeing that as well. Not too probably Toronto must get close to that half-inch area there, or maybe it's just to their north. And also that extends into north central New York, where they got three-quarters of an inch to an inch of liquid being indicated there, which is why we have the winter storm watch up. But everybody else is generally, some quarter-inch amounts in the Appalachians. Otherwise, it's a tenth to a quarter of an inch, and from North Carolina down into Georgia and across the South, it's even less. It's either nothing for the next 7 days or less than a tenth, and some heavier precip with that subtropical jet in the Pacific coming across the Gulf of Mexico and offshore. You're seeing inch and a half plus rains for much of the state of Florida over the next 7. Um, I don't know. This is I don't quite know what to make of all of this, to tell you the truth.
It is, well, we just said we're seeing things that we're not really accustomed to seeing, especially at this particular time of the year. Things are really kind of weird. But just to refer back a couple of minutes ago, Joe, to what you were talking about, Vince Croce mentioning the widespread of snow amounts in his part of Brooklyn. Several years ago, I was interviewed by Westchester Magazine, and one of the questions that they threw at me was, For you, or perhaps meteorologists in general, what is the most fascinatingly perplexing aspect of weather? In other words, what's the white whale for you guys? And my answer to that was the fact that because of snow banding, the computer models, I answered the question this way: the computer models we use to make such assessments have a lot of problems in depicting exactly where localized bands of heavy snow will set up. So places in Westchester, for example, might see only a few inches, while right across the river, Orange County, some communities may get over a foot. And again, we saw that just yesterday in a large section of the Hudson Valley, and also as far south as parts of New York City. So I said, hopefully, and this dates back to 2000, 2020, and here we are 4 years later. I said in 2020, hopefully in the future, the technology will improve enough to allow us to better pinpoint in advance who will be specifically affected by localized bands of heavy snow. Well, guess what? It's 4 years later, and we're still scratching our heads. So, I mean, that as the questioner asked, what is the big white whale for you guys? I said snow banding. I mean, we finally figured out that, and we'll probably have a lot more accuracy in our wintertime snow forecasts as opposed to what we went through yesterday.
I brought this map up, which is I showed this the night before, and this actually worked out pretty well, Joe. In the track of the upper low with this system, if you looked at nothing else, if you look at nothing else and just looked at the track of the upper low and used the rule, which is basically you look where the track is, and then 50 50 miles to 120 miles north of the track of the upper low is usually where the heaviest snow falls. And this was the NAM model, and I drew this up just to illustrate those two black lines would be that 50 to 120-mile range inside there. And if you just looked at this, you would have, as a forecaster, if you'd have just looked at this and nothing else, you would have known where to put your heavy snow amounts. It really worked out. It really worked out quite well.
Right, but you said 50 to 100 miles, right? And that's a
50, 50, 50 to 100, 120 miles roughly.
but that's still a rather wide band, Joe. I mean,
Yeah, the
70.
75-mile band. That's just about what this is,
Yeah, but
roughly.
that would encompass the entire New York City area and the environs within 50
Well,
miles of.
when I say the heaviest snow, I'm not specifically pointing to the banding. I'm
Right,
just, as it turned out with this, inside that 75-mile band was where most of the snow fell. Now, inside that 75 miles, there were bands.
right.
Uh, and that's that. This is not going to, this is sort of a general. If you're trying to figure, we're trying to figure out yesterday. Okay, where's the northern edge of the accumulating snow going to be? Where's the southern edge of the accumulating snow going to be? This would have worked out quite well.
Yeah, I'll
It was
remember.
just, it works. It works.
I did say yesterday or the day before, when you mentioned this, I said I kind of remember somebody saying not the 500, but the 850 was useful in
Yeah,
that same.
you probably could do it with the 850 if the system is relatively vertical. You could use the 700. You could use the 850. I just happen to use the 500.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So WPC. Now, remember, there are two weather systems here in this scan on WPC, which takes us right through Saturday evening. So it's sort of the northern system and the southern system combined, but they're actually, obviously, they're two separate. One, so if you look at the probabilities that are generally north of Route 84, from Connecticut and New York State northward, and in Pennsylvania. That's from the first system. Now, if you go, pretty much if you go south of that, that would be the second system. So for the second system, we're looking at relatively low probabilities of at least two, but then you get into western and southwest Jersey, southern Pennsylvania, northern Delaware, northern Maryland. The darker blue here is a 40% chance, and the lighter blue that's circled in parts of south central Pennsylvania is a 50% chance for at least a couple of inches. And also down in the Appalachians into West Virginia, we have a much higher probability there. And then with the first system to the north, you've got 80 to 100% probability for at least two. And I'll put up the probabilities for at least four. And we'll sort of ignore the stuff to the south, although they have a low probability of four um, for the southern system. But for the northern system, a high probability of four or more in north central New York and northeastern New York, and also up in Vermont, where apparently, as we said earlier, there are areas that don't have any snow cover in Vermont and haven't had snow cover for the first 12 days of the month. But there you have it. A little confusing, but this is the world we live in. Okay, so I don't think Tropical Tidbits is up, but let me just try in case there's a miracle. And I can tell you right now, it would have already loaded. So they're still down. So we will take a look at this through the eyes of pivotal weather. And here's the U.S. surface map. We're using the 18Z GFS. And here comes the first system, and you see it there moving across Michigan and then into northern New York, I should say. Southern end of it, maybe a shower of rain or snow, some steadier snow. I think Boston could wind up with coating to an inch or two, northern Connecticut a coating to an inch or two, and then the amounts will pick up as you get up into Vermont and into northeastern and north central New York. And then that low goes out. Now, again, with all this western energy, there's another low, and I'm just rolling it back because these systems, you got the one that's off the west coast, and there's some energy into southern Idaho, and that low moves eastward, actually moves southeastward, gets pretty far south into Oklahoma. And you start to see it generate some snow in southern Illinois, southern Indiana, and Kentucky. Now, this is by Friday evening. It has a low in eastern Tennessee. And then, of course, it starts to move fairly quickly to the east across southern Virginia. And there's an area of light and a small area of what I would think might be darker blue, moderate snow. Maybe that briefly touches southern New Jersey. It gets into Delaware. Probably Washington, D.C. and Baltimore might get a few inches out of this. And then the low just goes straight out. There's nothing in the upper atmosphere to cause this to intensify as it approaches the coastline. So, the northern fringe of this probably comes through during the overnight hours, say between midnight and daybreak on Saturday. Maybe somebody gets the ground whitened or maybe a little bit more. But ultimately, that goes out. The weekend, Saturday looks cold, Joe, with that low going out and some colder air coming in. So for the holiday weekend, I'm thinking, Saturday and probably into Sunday, it'll be on the cold side, and Monday, President's Day, it'll probably moderate a little bit. But on the whole, after that system goes out Saturday morning, the holiday weekend looks pretty good.
If for nothing else, be it snow or no snow for wherever you happen to be watching right now, it does look like a reinforcement of cold air for this upcoming holiday weekend. So I know already, Joe, people are talking about how, there's going to be a big warm up later this month and March looks very warm. Put that out of your mind for the moment. If you're a cold weather fan, you'll be happy, at least for the next 2, 3, 4 days, as this cold air mass kind of takes up residence across the mid-Atlantic and Northeast.
Yeah, and as far as elsewhere in the West, you can see these surges of rain coming in. I'm rolling this back. Let me just roll this back to tonight. Oops, there we go. Where we have that low that's off the coast of Oregon and the rain and snow that has moved inland. Then there's a bit of a break. And then here comes the next arm of heavy rain coming in later Saturday into Saturday night into California. And then a break, and then yet another surge of heavy rain on Monday. This Monday one looks like it's the one that is going to produce some big rainfall amounts. There's a low that's pretty far south there off the coast of California with this big arm, this big occlusion that sweeps inland. with some heavy rain and maybe even some thunderstorms in there. And also, you can see the darker blue heavy snows in the Sierra Nevadas over the state of Florida. If you're going down to Florida for the holiday weekend, or if you've got next week off, because I know a lot of folks, I don't know if that's the winter break this year. Uh, uh, it's going to be a little problematic because of that subtropical jet there, at least through the weekend, and then maybe it improves on Monday. And then after that, just looking ahead to next week, there's not really a whole lot going on. Uh, there's some kind of Arctic front on the GFS around the middle of the week with some colder air for the second half of next week, if you want to believe it. And then another front after that that follows going into the weekend of the 24th, 25th. So I don't know. But as far as major storms are concerned, there doesn't appear to be anything here that suggests that we're going to see anything of that caliber.
Yeah, in one sense, it's an active storm pattern, no question about that. And actually, there may be a pause, as you just pointed out, for next week. But we're still not seeing any tremendously cold scenarios, and whatever blocks we do get are going to be short-lived.
Yes, I agree. And I'm just doing a few things off camera with some maps. But it's as far as yeah, I'm bringing up the plumes. If you just give me a moment here, I will bring up the local plumes.
And by the way, if those of you who got a lot out of yesterday, between now and the end of this month, and don't forget, this is a leap year, so we actually have 29 days and not 28 in February. But hopefully, many of you were able to enjoy yesterday's storm. One more opportunity, I think, Joe, will come maybe around the 23rd, 24th, 25th. And then after that, I think things change toward a spell of milder weather for quite a while, actually.
All right. The plumes, as I like to look at now, this is for the Saturday system. They've actually been showing a little bit more snow with each run, so now they've actually have it further north than the other models, which leads me to be a bit suspect. But they add the plumes are actually showing a couple of inches across central and southern New Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania, an inch or two up to the Hudson Valley, Long Island, into Connecticut. You know what? I just don't think there's much in the way of upside with this, from what I'm seeing. It's a small system. The upper air is not really all that favorable. The trough is not sharp enough, so um,
Just we went over
it
100.
it might be a cheap thrill. Leon Probetsky, thank you for hitting super chat tonight. Most appreciated. Hope you enjoyed your snow in Lindenhurst. So, do you have Briller Jeopardy or not tonight?
I I do have Briller Jeopardy, and yes, and as Vincent Croce says, as Ed Norton said,
Le
La Plume.
Plume
Let me
de
let
la.
me point out let me point out that La Plume at one point for yesterday's storm was going like 8 inches for Poughkeepsie, and Poughkeepsie ended up with barely an inch, I think. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like when Ed Norton said, Pierre Delabrioski didn't create, he condemned the sewers of Paris.
By the way, just going back to what you said, quoting that doctor in that article,
Yes,
there is Climo there is Climo information in a lot of the models, and if if she's right, then models aren't going to be working very well, and we just saw an example of that from with this storm.
a lot of these models may be going bye bye a lot quicker than. I mean, we're talking about the operational European and the NAM completely going away. Who knows what's going to happen to the other models?
And by the
But
way,
this,
the Moss the statistical GFS Moss models didn't do a good job either.
oh God, tell me about it,
I used
man.
to love looking at them as a good clue. They always used to pick up on looking for the snow amounts there, the 1, the 2, and the 6 or the 8,
Right.
um, and the statistical printout of what the weather conditions were supposed to be, temperatures, dew points, and all the rest of it. I always found those really, really useful, but I haven't really been using them very much for a while, and now, as you said, they did such an abominable job with this one.
Yeah, I mean, I said, 2, 3 days ago, I said, all right, so let's see what outlandish numbers these models are going to come up with. And I'm looking at the NAM and I'm looking at the GFS and I'm seeing, snow for White Plains, 0 or 1, for Poughkeepsie, for Montgomery, in Orange County, 0, 0. I said, what the heck's going on here? And that, I have to tell you, Joe, that actually played into my forecast. I said something's wrong here. I don't know what. The models are going crazy in every which way or whatever, and the fact that they're not even these conditional precipitation models are not even picking up on any snow. Any snow. I mean, if I can you imagine somebody who's just starting out as a forecaster, and he relies heavily on the tabular information, the model outputs that says, and he says, "Well, I don't think we're going to get any snow tomorrow, so my forecast is for maybe a little bit of snow, but no accumulation." I mean, he or she would have done that if she, followed those models. I mean, what can you
Right.
say? What can you say?
Yep.
It,
You can't
anyway,
say anything. You throw your hands up and you just move on.
Driller Jeopardy, there have been 7, according to Mr. Driller, 7 snowstorms at Central Park of at least 20 inches since 1869. 4 of the 7, and this is really, you talk about here, once again, things that have changed, things that have flipped, things that if you had come to Joe and I when we were first getting started back in the late 70s, and you had told us that in the first 20 years of the 21st century, 4 20-plus inch snowstorms would hit New York. And from the going back from 1869 to the late 1970s, only 3 of those type of storms had ever hit Central Park. And now, again, in this century alone, we've had 4. 4. So how many of the years can you name and hint one of those years had actually 2 20 inchers in one single season? So this is not
Oh,
one where I can
okay.
ask.
See now, here's the thing. Because on Long Island, it's more like there were more like 8 of those rather
Yeah,
than 4. So my mind is going to the ones where I lived because that's where my head's at. Um,
the one where you got 34 inches, or
well, there's the one in 2013 that I got 30 inches out of. That was the best. Um, I think I have the picture of my yardstick. With the 30 was like over 30, like 30 and a half. Um, And then, of course, a certain forecaster who shall remain nameless because we are friends, accused me of snow envy. So, Rich, are
well,
you listening? Are you watching tonight?
we're
I'm
still
big,
getting
big
adrift.
hugs, buddy. I'm just teasing you.
All right. So basically, the question from the chairman, from Scott Briller, is there were 4 storms between 2000 and now, 4
Okay.
storms that at Central Park dumped 20 inches or more of snow. Can you name? Well, can you
So,
name them?
is the Boxing Day storm in there to 2010?
Yes.
All right. So there's the Boxing Day
December
storm.
26, 27,
All right.
2010.
There was one in. Wasn't there one in February of 2006?
There's another one, February 11th and 12th, 2006.
Okay, there's that.
And don't forget, here's the hint, one of these years had 20 inchers in
Right.
one year.
Um, was there one in 20, was it 2002 or 2003?
No, there was not.
Neither one.
Neither one.
Okay. Well, the chat board says Frank Scalera says 2009.
No, that's not one of them.
Um, well, there's the 2016. Rich Rothmansky
Chuck,
brought
Chuck,
that up.
Chuck Cardillo mentions 2006, and that indeed was one of the 4, February
Right,
11th, 12th, 2006.
right.
So really, So
Joe
really,
LaPrest, Joe LaPresti says 2006, 2010, 2013, 2016. But
okay, well,
the 2013, I don't think gave 20 inches to. No, it didn't give 20 inches to New York City. I don't think it did.
no.
Okay. So how many have we got so far?
Well, we got the Boxing Day storm,
Right. We got the
and,
one in 2006.
and we got the one in 2006.
Okay.
And
Um,
I'm trying to
hmm.
find. I'm trying to find with Chuck Cardell. Chuck Cardell's at 2006 and 2010. And yes, Chuck, 2010, February 25th, 2010 was another 20 incher.
All right.
And in
So
fact, if you do the record keeping, that was the year 2010 with two 20-inch snowstorms, February 25th, 26th, and the Boxing Day storm, both dumping over
right,
20.
2010, 2011, that particular winter. So how many? There's how many left? One.
Well, there's only one left, and I'm surprised because that one should be near and dear to your heart from your FiOS days.
Well, the 2016.
You did say 2016?
Yes,
Yeah, January 22nd to the
January
20th.
20, 2016.
Right. So I think we mentioned all of them. The all four. January of 2016, February of 2006, February of 2010, and December of 2010.
Yeah. See, then there were a bunch of them that happened on Long Island that didn't happen, like the half blizzard in 2015. It just it's funny because I had so many 20. I lived through so many 20-inch plus snowstorms on Long Island in that decade that it just became routine. And certainly in those years where we got like 2010, 2011, 2009, 2010, and the blizzard warning was just, oh, it's another day, it's a blizzard, we got a blizzard warning up. It just
Another
seemed to
blizzard.
be up for every storm, and then you could just sort of just go out and just say 18 to 24 for everybody, and that was put your feet back and watch it accumulate. Those were the days.
Those were the days, my friends. We thought they'd never end.
Well, that cycle I think is probably broken now. So that 20-year cycle is done, unless there's a big surprise in the next few weeks, and then maybe for the next few years.
Yeah, and again, we tell all of the young people out there who, over the 20-year period, they've gotten so used to these major snowfalls, and we tell you that back in the 70s and 80s, I mean, that was like seemingly impossible. I mean, like, the blizzard of '78 was such an out of place situation. We simply were not used to seeing storms like that.
No, we had gone 9 years. Well, I'm sorry. We had gone actually because there were two, the January 19th, 20th, and then the blizzard of 78. But you had to go back to the Lindsay snowstorm. So you had, it was 9 years in between dips at the well. Then you had the President's Day storm the next year. Then you waited till 1983 for the megapolitan blizzard. And then after 1983, the next one after that produced a double-digit snow amount was the
96,
90 no the 93 superstorm,
93 super.
right, and then 96, and then you had to wait until you got into the 2000s when once you got to the winter of 2000 2001, which was a very snowy winter. The next winter after that was not was a single digit winter, and then you had four in a row of 40 plus.
Right. Keith James II asking you, but I can answer them if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead.
How much snow fell in the Central Park during the blizzard of 1888? And the answer to that question is 21 inches. And I don't think that in 1888 they sent somebody outside to stick a ruler onto the tops of cars. Like,
No, no, but they had the horse carriages. They could have stuck the rulers on top of horse carriages
right, or the horse.
or the horse.
Or the horse. In fact,
Um,
very interesting. There was a book, and I think you have the copy of that book, Joe, about the blizzard of 1888. Wonderful book. I'm sorry I don't remember the author, but he said that during that blizzard in 1888, one of the, I think maybe it was the wind vane or something, the anemometer was malfunctioning. And whoever was the meteorologist in charge in New York said, "This is an impressive storm, historic storm. We need those wind observations." And somebody actually went out in the thick of the blizzard to climb the mast to fix that anemometer or to get it unstuck. And
Right.
I mean, can
That
you imagine?
that lasted 3 days.
Yeah,
And it started as rain. The temperature dropped down, I think, to 4 above 0,
right.
and it ended as rain.
Well, actually, I think what happened was after the blizzard, it warmed up very quickly, and then there was a rainstorm, and all that rain falling on the snow. And of course, on top of all of that, the snow and the wind bringing down all the telegraph lines, and that's when, electrical lines, and that's when somebody, whoever was in charge, either the mayor or the governor or
No, it was
somebody,
Thomas Edison.
Thomas Edison, said, "You know what? We got to put all those lines underneath the ground so this never happens again." So that happened in New York, but it didn't seem to happen or didn't register in many of the suburban locations, such as
Right.
where, which is why
And
every time we get a 50-mile-an-hour wind or a big snow or wind or rain event, I got to get on my knees and pray that I don't lose power because those poles come crashing on down.
and then of course there was the famous linseed snowstorm,
Right.
when Mayor Linseed was mayor and Governor Stonefellow was the governor of New York.
And you know
Uh,
why? You know why? One of the reasons why that was such a, first of all, it was a Sunday morning. Second of all, everybody, if it's whoever was out, Department of Works or whatever like that, skeleton crews. Third, the forecast was for slushy rains, a bit of snow changing right over to rain. But number four, and this is not often mentioned, Mayor Lindsay had a bitter dispute with a contractual dispute with the sanitation workers up until the moment or right before the snowstorm hit. So those people at the sanitation department didn't have much respect for the mayor. And the mayor, I guess, didn't have much respect for the sanitation department. So neither one was going to help each other out in this moment of crises. And and everybody was making nobody was making quick decisions. The snow's coming down, you know, weather service, 2 to 4 inches of snow changing to rain. Then a few hours later, 4 to 8 inches of snow changing to rain. Then 6 to 10 inches. It was crazy, and
yeah,
no school for 3 or 4 days. People were not able to get to work because there was nobody to, especially in Queens. I remember Queens, especially, there
yeah.
were many roads weren't plowed out for more than a week. And if it wasn't for the New York Mets, Mayor Lindsay wouldn't have been reelected because the Mets won the pennant, they won the World Series. Here's the mayor in the clubhouse pouring champagne over Ron Swoboda's head, and apparently that helped him get reelected. Everybody kind of forgot about the snowstorm. So,
Yep. Chuck Cardillo, thanks for hitting super chat. And we're all sorry about with your cat. Very sad, very sad, and it's always tough to lose a pet and a family member. It just is. Pet being the family member, it's tough to lose. I'm not. That's what I'm getting at. You have a pet becomes it's a family member,
oh
and
yeah,
yeah, and it's just very very difficult.
yes, yeah. In some cases,
Uh,
I think more. I think people can't. They feel sadder when their fur baby dies as opposed to maybe a living relative.
Depending on the relative, they may be happy to see them go.
I got to ask you a question, Joe.
Yeah, of
Did
course.
I, did I downplay when I'm talking about the 1888 storm? Did I downplay it?
Did you downplay it?
Yes.
Well, you mean when you that the day before when you forecasted when we were telegraph doing the Joe and Joe weather show by telegraph?
Yeah,
No,
I only went for 12 to 14 inches for that
well,
storm.
I don't know how many taps on the telegraph. I think I think I counted 12. I'm not sure.
No,
You know,
but no, but seriously, I mean, when I was talking about the 1888 storm, did I downplay it in any way?
no. Who said you downplayed it?
Not okay. Bobby Livingworth. I don't know who you're listening to. It wasn't me. He says, Joe Rayo, you just can't downplay the 1888 storm. It was the worst. And again, I don't know what some of you people are who you're listening to.
I have to tell I, I, you know, I busted out laughing because I did go on your Facebook page yesterday, and I saw there was a post there, and of course there was a whole slew of comments. The first comment I saw, I bursted laughing because the person said, um, uh, now I forgot. Oh, conservative Joe strikes again.
Yeah, I was going to make a comment to that person saying, you're wrong. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal. I'm actually registered as an independent.
Which means you stand for nothing.
I
Uh,
stand for yeah, yes,
yeah, oh, it's just too funny. I don't know what it is. Snow just evokes such a passion in people. They either really really like it or they really really hate it, and it's and they get so passionate about it. I mean, I understand it from the snow weenie standpoint, sort of. Um, but on the other side of it, I don't know. I find that with everything that goes on in your life, to get upset over crystallized water is just you know, a little bit over the top for me.
and here's Brandon Grabachoff making you and me feel really old, Joe. Said anything before 1988, I don't remember. I wasn't alive.
Oh yes, well, he's a youngin.
He's a youngin,
Well,
yeah.
1988, which means you're 36, right? You're going to be 36 this year.
Who, me? Oh,
No,
Brandon.
Brandon Grablichov.
Yeah,
He's going to be 36 this year.
yeah.
Okay, well, just hang on because after you turn 40, you'll wake up one day and all of a sudden you'll be 60. That's the 50s. I found that being in the 50s flew by, and of course, looking back, it all flew by. Now that we're 65, I can't believe we're 5 years. I just feel like I just turned 60, and I know now I just turned 65. Oh well, pretty soon we'll be in the upper 60s to low 70s. I hope the sea breeze kicks in.
Exactly. And you're going to be, Brandon, when you get to be a certain age, when you get into your 60s, then what happens is that you become exceedingly pessimistic. I've told this to you, Joe. Every morning when I wake up, and Renata gets upset if I say it out loud or whatever, so I just say it to myself. I open my eyes, I look out the window, I look at the digital clock on my end table, and I just say to myself, I do a Howard Cosell. Ah, yes, another day of frustration and
See,
futility is
and
about to.
I don't even, it doesn't even come into my mind. I get up in the morning and I just get on with it. I don't get up in the morning and say, um, I don't say what you say. Um, I just get on with it. I don't know. I've always been an optimistic person.
Oh, well,
So, especially as I've gotten older and some of the things that I've gone through personally, uh, you just waste too much energy being negative. Everything is fixable,
and Dennis
except
Cassia, wait till you hit the 70s, he says.
well, you finally get old enough, and I always said this, you finally get old enough that you get your head together, and what happens? Your rear end falls apart. That's just the way it goes. All
Dennis,
right.
Cassia, Dennis Cassia, by the way, I was looking, I have Joe Sky and Telescope magazine, and I have kept every issue going all the way back into the 1960s. You can imagine what Renata thinks, you got like 600 or 700 magazines, but I've kept them all. And for whatever reason, I had to do a little bit of research. I look back at this total eclipse of the sun in 1970, and in the May edition of Sky and Telescope magazine, in the centerfold, a beautiful color photograph of the solar corona and the prominences of the sun, those tongues of hydrogen alpha flame, taken by our own Dennis Cassia. And I looked at that picture and I said, number one, I didn't even know he had a beautiful photograph like this. I can't remember till now that he was in the centerfold of Sky and Telescope with his big time. And also, at that time, Dennis, if I'm not mistaken, you were a teenager. And now here you are lamenting about the fact, wait till you hit the 70s. I'm not there yet, but you could see that, Joe, that you start out young and ambitious and happy and everything else, and then as soon as you get as old as we are, it's like, ugh.
No, like I went to the gym today, and I did 55 minutes on the bicycle, and then I did 35 minutes of weights, and I kind of realized on the drive home that I'm doing, in terms of the exercises that um, I'm doing the same thing I was doing when I was in my 50s and in my 40s and in my 30s. So I must be doing something right because I do feel, you know, I feel good, and that's a plus.
Well,
Okay,
hopefully you won't drop dead tomorrow when you're on the bike.
no, I won't drop dead. I'm booked.
Joseph
I got a poker game tomorrow afternoon. I can't die.
Joseph Lepresti, John Lightman, Paul Roman, Leon Probitsky, Chuck Cardillo. Thank you all for hitting Super Chat. Thank you all for putting us over 100 likes tonight. And one last comment, bundle up and take a look, because on this Valentine's Day evening, if you look high toward the southwest, you'll see a wide waxing crescent moon, and right to its upper left, a brilliant white silvery star. That will be the biggest planet in the solar system, Jupiter. They are right now the two brightest things in our evening sky. Watch them pull closer together as they sink toward the west. The king of the planets floats high in the southwest at nightfall and sets around 12:20 a.m. local standard time. But they're out now, right now, and if you have clear weather, step outside and take a look at the king and the moon. And that's it for tonight.
Yes. All right, folks. We'll see you tomorrow night, 7:35 p.m.